Hello, I'm Karen Hall, editor for Cygnus Graphics Media, and I'm talking today with Gary Jones, who is Assistant Vice President for Environmental, Health, and Safety Affairs at Printing Industries of America. Gary, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and to be interviewed.
Oh, well, let's start off with a really good question then. With governmental regulations becoming more stringent all the time, how can print providers make sure that they are always in compliance? What resources are available to help them with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, being from the association side, our first and primary choice would be us at Printing Industries America. We service our members, and that's my primary responsibility, is to help them understand their compliance requirements. So the first place to start is really our association, and on our website we have compliance-related information that our members can download. In addition, our affiliates, we have Printing Industries affiliates across the nation, and they have different regions. They have specialists at times that can help them with their compliance requirements. And then we're also involved with a program called the Printers National Environmental Assistance Center, which is a mouthful, but it's www.pnac.org. And it's funded by EPA, and it's a compliance assistance center. And so we have fact sheets and case studies and other detailed information that's at that website that they can download as well. And we cross-link some of that from our website as well. And probably last but not least is actually the agency themselves. Some of the agencies have small business assistance programs that they can contact and get answers to their questions. But there's a lot of reluctance to contact the government. We always know I'm from the government, I'm here to help. So we tend to get a lot of those questions. So we get a lot of emails and phone calls from our members, and I have a staff at Printing Industries America, two other folks, and we spend a lot of time helping our members understand those compliance requirements. And unfortunately, because printing is a manufacturing, we're subject to almost every EPA and just about every OSHA regulation. And so it's a matter of trying to find out what the question is, look at what the requirements are, and then help them relative to what's required at the federal as well as the state and local level.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty overwhelming for people at some times. What would you consider to be the most significant change in environmental regulations in the recent past?
Well, I would say the most significant change is the focus on air pollution control requirements. The way that the regulations are set up is that areas of the country are divided up as to whether they have clean air or dirty air. And one of the standards is ozone, which is ozone that's formed in the lower atmosphere. Because there's a lot of areas that are considered ozone non-attainment, the states have to put in place regulations to control emissions of pollutants. And the primary pollutant that comes from our industry are volatile organic compounds. And the thresholds have dropped quite dramatically. At one time, the thresholds are usually expressed in an emission amount. And each state's a little bit different, but for example, some areas they had thresholds as high as 50 tons per year or 100 tons per year. They've now been dropped to 3 tons per year. So what that means is that very small printing operations, which never had any concerns about air pollution, are now subject to the requirements for both air permits and for control requirements. And so we've seen a gradual reduction in some areas, but then EPA had just issued a new guidance document, believe it or not, back in 2006. So it's taken this period of time, but the last 2 years we've seen a tremendous amount of activity at the state and local level on air pollution regulations. Part of the role that we serve to help our members is we negotiate with the states. We represent the industry in the negotiations of the requirements, but EPA has said it has to come down to 3 tons per year. So that means we have a lot smaller printers who don't even generally understand the VOCs. But if you're a sheet-fed printer, or if you have a large format, if you have flexo, even for flexo presses, we have a lot of litho-flexo type members. If the emissions are greater than 3 tons per year of VOC, volatile organic compound emissions, they need to be paying attention to what's going on in their states. As a resource, what we've done, as the states have developed these new rules, we've done a series of webinars, and we've developed some toolkits for our members for them to be in compliance. And we do that in conjunction with the affiliates. So they can go on and download the toolkit for free. It has a fact sheet, it has questions and answers, it has record keeping forms, things that they need to be in compliance. So that's kept us very busy the last two and a half, almost 3 years, helping our members with the air pollution side. So to me, that's the most significant one.
Oh, and that surely does, I'm certain, keep you quite busy. But shifting gears just a little bit, what do you consider to be the most significant change in labor regulations in the recent past?
Well, probably not from a regulation change as much as a change in enforcement and a change in focus. Unfortunately, in our industry, we have a high rate of amputations. And because of the high rate of amputations, OSHA has declared our industry as a high hazard industry for amputations. Coupled with that is the change in the administration, which occurred in the last election, 2008. OSHA has hired 250 additional inspectors. And with our industry being on a high hazard industry, our members are getting inspected at an alarmingly high rate. The industry is focused. This is really a great opportunity because we're trying all channels to get the word out to our members, is that OSHA is targeted the industry. We get, just last week we had 3 phone calls from members being inspected. They're focusing on machine guarding, lockout tagout, safe equipment operation. And the penalties have been tripled. So the end result is that our members are getting very, very high dollar penalties, proposed penalties, and we're trying to work with the members to intercede and try to work with OSHA on coming up to some mutually agreeable solution through the negotiation process. The ideal situation is to call us first, say what can we do before OSHA comes, not after OSHA's there, because machine guarding, as we said, machine guarding, lockout, tagout, safe equipment operation. Now, what we did for our members to help them is we created a safe equipment operation guide that we came out with actually almost 3 years ago. We gave a free copy to every member. And then last year, started last year, finished this year, we have a series of safety posters that we make available free to our members to help remind them on safe equipment operation. And they're very well received, so we're going to extend the poster series for next year. We're going to do some additional posters. But I think the most important thing, the message I really want to deliver is that as I give my presentations, the printers need to critically look at their equipment, critically look at their operations from the eyes of the OSHA inspector. Not this is how we've always done it, but if someone were to come in and say, well, is that piece of equipment safe? Is that a practice safe? And probably the biggest misconception we have to overcome is that printers think that because older equipment that didn't come with a guard doesn't need a guard. By far the most common question I get, and that's not true. OSHA, as you own the equipment, the printer owns the equipment, OSHA expects you to bring that up to the proper guarding standards. There's not a provision in the regulation that says you can work with old unsafe equipment. So if you have older equipment without guards, they have to be brought up to the guarding standards, and it's the responsibility of the printer, and there's no grandfathering. Everybody wants it to be grandfathered, and there's no grandfathering of older equipment. So I see a mix of equipment, in a lot of shops and a lot of operations, older equipment, newer equipment. Newer equipment is much better guarded. The older equipment, could see improvements, but it's also how the operators interact with the equipment. So we are really under the gun. I mean, I can't say this strong enough that every facility needs to look at that because they're facing high fines, and we get lots of calls. We probably get 2 or 3 calls a week at least from companies, members across the country that are being inspected by OSHA, and then they need help. Ideally, as I said, you want to be there before OSHA gets there. We want to work with them before OSHA, so we have tools, we have, actually Rick Hartwig, who works with me, he's our specialist, and he spends a lot of time on the phone helping the printers understand the guarding and lockout tagout and safe equipment operation. So to me, it's not a new rule, it's a new enforcement, a new focus on enforcement of existing rules that are there is where we're catching a lot of, and I would say probably the other one is combustible dust. Because we generate a lot of dust in our industry, we cut paper, we trim paper, in some cases, we use perfect binding lines. Paper dust also gets a lot of attention. We're getting a lot of citations for buildups of paper dust. So the best solution is to clean that paper dust up, and so you don't give OSHA an excuse to cite you, because they are knocking on the doors, and it's an alarming number of companies that are being inspected. So safe equipment operation of paper dust would be the primary focus, I would say, from the labor side, from the health and safety side.
Okay, very good. Well, now, again, shifting gears a little bit, there's an awful lot of talk everywhere you turn about going green. Everyone wants to know about going green.
Yes.
My question to you is it really worth the investment?
Yes, twofold. First of all, I know that there's a lot of concern regarding one particular program, FSC certification, because of the cost associated with FSC certification. There's a lot of negative focus on that, which I understand and appreciate from the perspective is that the average cost of getting audited and getting certified each year is about $3,000 to $5,000. It's an annual audit, and it's hard to recoup that investment for a lot of our members. But the FSC certification, quite frankly, is what we call a single attribute program. In other words, it only focuses on one small slice of green and sustainability. It focuses on fiber sourcing, which is important because as an industry we have to be sourcing paper from a well-managed forest, because otherwise what do we say? We support the clear cutting of the rainforest for our paper. So we do have to support that as an industry, but I think the issue on green, and most importantly, is a chance to talk about the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership, which is a program that we at Printing News America got together with other trade associations and created a program of a certification program, basically to answer the question, what's a green printer? What I tell folks, I said there's two things. One is being certified gets you recognition in the marketplace. But if you approach the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership in the right way, the value and benefit from an operations perspective is incredible. Why do I say that? I'll give you an example. One of our members who focused on solid waste as part of green and sustainability has now announced that they're selling their compactor, because over the past 3 years this has been a focal project for them. And so the end result is they're not throwing away any waste. It's like going zero landfill. As a result of being zero landfill, what they've found is they found operational savings. They found cost savings from just not throwing the stuff away, but they changed the way that they are purchasing paper, for example. So they asked the question, why is this stuff hitting the dumpster? And the best place, in my opinion, is to walk your process backwards and say, why are we throwing this away? And why is this occurring and how can we prevent that? The net result is they've saved almost $200,000 a year by focusing on solid waste. The reason why they're doing that is because green and sustainability is an important part of their company culture and their market presence. So as a result of what they've done, they actually have companies coming to them and saying, we understand you have a good reputation, we want you to print for us because we want to partner with these organizations. The other side of this is we're working now with a member who is trying to get certified to print for a large retail department store chain. They have two sets of standards. The first one is what had traditionally always been done, which is the print quality. So they have a whole set of standards they have to pass. They're going to get audited on print quality. And in addition now, they have a set of standards from environmental. So in addition to doing the traditional print and your workflow and color quality and all that, right? Now they have a set of environmental standards that they now have to pass. If they want to be qualified as a vendor to print for this large chain, they then have to pass these standards. So it's a market issue in terms of the way we look at Sustainable Green Printing Partnership is it recognizes and acknowledges companies that want to be certified. It's a program for the industry, by the industry. It's independent of the trade associations so that it isn't considered a biased program. There's auditors that have to pass an audit, a third-party audit, so it's not like somebody can say, well, I'm just recycling my paper and I'm using soy ink. It's a holistic program, and it requires them to do actions. It requires them to put in place a management system to manage sustainability. But it answers the question, and it's done in a credible and transparent fashion, because this whole issue of green and sustainability is a market-driven phenomenon. So yes, you have your position in the marketplace. You want to differentiate yourself as being a green and sustainable printer, if that's where your market is, or if you want to pursue that type of market. But also, coupled with that is the reduction in operating costs, because we found companies, part of being certified is you have to work on an annual project. So it's a continuous improvement program. So we have companies that work on solid waste, we have companies working on VOC emission reductions, it could be companies that work on a substrate. We want to improve our substrate offerings and we want to increase the environmentally friendly substrates that are available. And so they pick a project and the program doesn't tell them what to do. They pick it and then they work on that project. And as a result, what we've seen, as I said, energy efficiency is also a big one. And while we're on the topic, energy efficiency is critically important. Several things going on. From a regulatory perspective, there's a lot of pressure on power companies because of greenhouse gas emissions. EPA has released all their regulations. Price of electricity is going up. It's going to go up quite dramatically, right? It's never going to come back down. So part of what I always counsel our members is to look at energy management. Companies involved in SGP, that's a very common project. We want to reduce our energy consumption. And so by reducing energy consumption, you save a lot of money, right? In your operations, you also help protect the environment. And the key is that you have to capture the value and the benefit to the environment and then allow your customers to take credit for that improvement. We have another member, for example, they do a lot of point-of-purchase display. And one of their primary customers is a brewery. And so the breweries, as you might imagine, because of green, they're focusing on water conservation. So they're going through their supply chain and saying, okay, what are you doing in the supply chain to reduce your consumption of water? And of course, it went to our member. And so we're working with our member to help put their arms around that and to service their customer. Again, it's a market-driven phenomenon. And we see this moving down through the supply chain. Sustainable Green Printing Partnership is a certification program that allows them to say, look, we are a sustainable operation. But even if you don't get certified under the SGP program, the value is that you can improve your operations by applying those same principles. And the last thing that I would want to say is that if you're a member of Printing Shoes America, we have on our website a green guide for graphic communications that's free. So you have to be a member. You log on using your username and password. And it's a self-assessment guide. It walks them through how to look at what they're doing. It looks at how they can structure what they're doing and market themselves as being a green and sustainable operation. Even if they don't get certified, of course, certification is those companies that want to have that extra level of credibility, transparency that, oh yeah, I know what you say you're doing. Now we've had an independent third party come in and say, yes, and they are doing what they're doing. So to me, I think it's well worth the investment. I know, like I said, there's somewhat of negativity regarding the FSC, but we have to do some education that sustainability is more than just an FSC. It's just a single attribute system, whereas sustainability is everything that's going on in your operations. And it's not just the green, but it's also what they call corporate social responsibility, or it's also referred to as people, planet, and profits. And that's the magic of it, is that the companies that embrace those concepts, they can save a lot of money in terms of operations and be able to put their best green foot forward, so to speak.
Outstanding food for thought.
Yes.
Gary, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your thoughts and your input.
Great, thanks for having me.